Now that we've talked about what we're going to do, let's go ahead and drop down into Visual Studio Code and secure our menus. Let's open the app component.html. If you remember in the last module, we added a new menu item here for login. Well, we only want that login menu item to show up if the user is not authenticated. So let's add a structural directive. And inside of here, we'll check the security object is authenticated property. And if it's not is authenticated, we'll display login. Otherwise, let's add another anchor tag here. And this anchor tag will have the structural directive that accesses the security objects is authenticated, but make sure it's true. If it's true, that means they have been authenticated. Let's go ahead and display now the log out, and let's add on the username. We can also then modify these two menus as well, and we can also check our security object. Now, if you remember our security object, that's the one that has all of those properties like can access products. So we add that one to turn off and on the products based on whether or not this value is set to a true or a false. And we'll also add the same thing here, but can access categories. Let's now go over to the app component.ts and add our security object property that's of the type app user auth. Hit tab so it imports the appropriate statement there. And let's go ahead and just set this to null for now. Then let's add a constructor. And in the constructor, we want to inject the security service. It's of the type security service. Hit tab again to import. And then we can access and set our security object property in this component by grabbing the security service dot security object property, and that then assigns that. Once we have that assigned, that is how we bind up now to the structural directives here in the HTML. The last thing we need to do is add our logout method. And in our logout method, we're simply going to call this dot security service dot logout. And as you remember, that resets the security object property, and it resets all of those values so that the is authenticated would go to a false, which means our menu system would change. Let's go ahead and save our changes. Let's go over to Chrome, and as we can notice, the products and the category menus have disappeared, as expected, because the can access products and can access category properties are initially set to values of false. We can click on the login, and we could type in psheriff, any sort of password, and click login. We immediately get our security object property displayed. The products and categories menus do come up, and our logout menu now changes to logout psheriff. If we click on the logout, right, it goes ahead and redoes everything. It actually, resets all those properties. And then let's go ahead and log in now as B. Jones. And now you can see that the products menu is gone and we just get categories. That's because the can access products property in our authorization object here, right, is false. So that means that menu item is turned off. And again, our username is now displayed next to logout here. The last thing we're going to do now is we're going to go back in. I want to go into the security folder, go to the login mocks. I'm going to change B. Jones so that he can access products. We're going to do some other demos here in a minute where we want him to be able to get at the products menu, and then we'll show you some other ways that we can secure other UI elements.